That's where salsa, I think, roots us in what we're trying to keep, and then gentrification comes in and tries to rip it apart.
The nice backstory that it was a Kickstarter.
Yes.
So the community funded it. Can you talk about how empowering that must feel that the community funded?
I mean, it's amazing, and so we're hoping that the community is extremely excited also for its release on the 5th, because they have poured everything into. They've known us. I guess it's like raising a baby for them. It's exceptional. We were the highest funded project on Kickstarter. I mean, it's incredible that the amount of support that people wanted this, people needed. It's our time for us to share these kinds of stories. I think Hollywood is ripe for us to share these kinds of stories that at this point is centered around, the Latin community, but can be related amongst every kind of American citizen.
Yeah, I think big props to the director, Anthony Nardolillo, for the hustle that I watched in the 4 years that I've been around him has been incredible. Up until yesterday, him at the airport lagging all the posters to New York. He has put so much time, so much energy into this film, and it shows. And I think everyone, not just the Latino community, one of the things I keep saying is that what I learned about salsa is that salsa blurs all color lines. You can feel it in the room. It's in the music and how rich it is. And it's awesome to see it on the big screen. I think everybody's going to be incredibly entertained and incredibly excited.
Well, I think, period, what happens with the movie, right, is that we're telling, it's a cultural story, right, and it's an American story. It's surrounded by Latinos, but we're Latin Americans here. So it's an American story, and gentrification is an American story. So it's very Latin identified, very Puerto Rican identified, but what are we? We're Americans, So I think that was knowing that that's what we were trying to project and remind people that we hold a corner of this country too, and that was the energy that went into those scenes. So I don't want to give too much away, but the film is going to give you a lot of everything. It's going to give you the emotions, it's going to give you heart, it's going to give you the fire, and it's going to give you the electricity which comes through the dance.
I mean, the salsa is like its own character in the film. I wouldn't say that the movie's about salsa, but it is an integral character.
We as kids grow up in a salsa studio and we are trained by our musician father. So the fact that we grow up together is what roots us in the culture that the barrio is being ripped away from. And the story goes, we're separated by a tragedy, myself and my older brother, and then 7 years later we come back together on the opposite sides of gentrification. I've become this Black Panther, so to say, of keeping the barrio authentic and rich with our salsa culture and the foods and the music and everything. And my brother is part of the companies that are building over what our father tried to preserve. So that's where salsa, I think, roots us in what we're trying to keep, and then gentrification comes in and tries to rip it apart. But ultimately, the family, the dance studio family, the immediate family comes together to find a happy median, because I think that's what's important to learn about gentrification wherever it's happening. It's the lack of inclusion and the lack of sensitivity, the lack of compassion that sometimes is integrated into gentrifying a neighborhood. And I think this story shows how we can all be included, how inclusion matters, So it's a nice story. It's salsa driven, but also family driven.
Yes.
I was really blessed with the cast that I had to work with. A lot of them already had movement and dance background. And they were all so open and so excited to, really get into the field that the music that we were creating for the film. So it wasn't a challenge. I was honored. Again, Gilbert Saldivar, who's one of the stars, is a friend of mine through the industry for, a long time. So it was, he's also someone I've admired as a Latin dancer who was able to make his way here in Hollywood. So all the way from Chicago, I was always admired his work. So being able to work with him on a project like this, it was nice. It was nice. It's always great when you get to work with people you respect. You know, I have to tell you, as a director, you don't find too many directors who are so open and willing to, you know, he gave me a position, but I'm a workhorse, so I go over and above, but he allowed me to. He saw my passion of how right I wanted to make this for him and for the film. And you know, when you're allowed that little bit of freedom, creative freedom in that process, it only sets you up to do the best.
Now, do you do a whole routine, or do you stop and then redo it for like a different camera angle?
Oh yeah, you know, it's how I was explaining to some of the reporters earlier. When you know, a 5-minute dance scene in TV and film, we shoot for 12 hours. You know, and the big dance scene in the film was a 13 hour shoot day.
So the big final scene took a full day. I mean, there's a lot of fireworks and things happening in that film, and a lot of different groups dancing. But the smaller scenes, I say we didn't do more than 3 or 4 takes, maybe.
Yeah.
It was like, boom, 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 let's get it, we got it, moving on.
Right.
I mean, we didn't have that much time to film. So time was of the essence. And so we went in there and just, I mean, this is gonna sound weird, but we just banged it out.
Yeah,
you know,
we
we just had
definitely
to get the work done because time was money and we didn't have that much time either.